Hi, welcome to today's video. Today I'd like to share with you all of the books I'd like to read in April. I feel like March went on forever and I got so much reading done. I have high hopes for April. But the first book I'd like to read, continuing on with my Shadowhunters reread, is Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy by Cassandra Clare, which I have only just learnt is Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, not just Tales from Shadowhunter Academy. For years since this came out, I did not know the was there. So, whoops! If you've been watching some of my previous videos, you may know that I'm currently rereading the entire Shadowhunter Chronicles, which is quite a project. I'm hoping to make a video about that, but I'm not doing it in any particular order, I guess. I'm kind of making it up as I go. I've read the Mortal Instruments and the Infernal Devices, and next I would like to read Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy. Of all of the novella bind-ups and short stories from Cassandra Clare, I think this might be my favourite. I like the way it's telling a certain character's story. I'm not going to say because of spoilers, but I like that we're following one character and then kind of following the memories of other characters. This book has one of my favourite side characters in the Shadowhunter Chronicles ever. George Lovelace is genuinely just one of my favourite characters. But yes, I have started this. I'm on the first short story and just loving it. This set of short stories follows the Mortal Instruments directly. You essentially see the inciting incident for this at the end of the Mortal Instruments, which is really fun. I think reading it after I've read the Infernal Devices is a good idea because some of these short stories do follow some of the characters from that series, again, looking through the memories of characters. It's good fun. Next, in my Shadowhunter reread, I would like to read the Bane Chronicles. I have not read this in a very long time. I don't recall many of the stories, but I think the Bane Chronicles is really interesting as a book because it exists in world. If you're unfamiliar, the Bane Chronicles follows the character of Magnus Bane and the tales of his very long life. He is an immortal warlock, so he has quite a few stories, and in the Mortal Instruments, towards the end, I want to say, you see him write this collection of stories to give to his romantic interest to kind of explain who he is and where he has been. And I think that's really interesting that we get to read that book. I don't have as strong a memory of this. Again, it is a reread, but I don't really remember much from it. I remember there is one about Peru, and that's about it. Maybe one is like about a birthday? I don't know. I'm excited to reread it. Magnus is one of those characters that I feel like is universally loved. So yeah, I'm excited. I have no idea how many books I can get through for this reread in a month. I read the entire Mortal Instruments and Infernal Devices series, so I'm going to add a few more to the list. And so I would also like to read The Dark Artificers by Cassandra Clare. This is my favourite series of the Shadowhunter Chronicles. I think the characters are really compelling. I think the story is really interesting. I reread this last year. This one's very fresh in my mind, but I am going to read it again. I think it's really interesting on this reread just noticing how much Cassandra Clare's writing developed over her career. Lady Midnight follows Emma Carstairs as she tries to find out what happened to her parents during the war because she doesn't believe the story that she was told. It also follows what happens to the Shadowhunters after the war and the complicated politics surrounding the relationship with the Fae. Emma lives with the Blackthorns, her Parabatai Jules, and his siblings, and it's just so good. I think this book has some of the most compelling side characters of any of Cassandra Clare's books. There's that thing in fantasy series in particular when you're with side characters rather than the main characters and you just kind of get bored, like you don't really care. I don't experience that with this series. I think that every kind of set of side characters is really interesting and I enjoy spending time with all of them. Lord of Shadows is my favourite of the Dark Artificers. It is the one that tore my heart out. It is the one that just made me feel so much. It's so good. One of my favourite characters plays a much bigger part in this book. He's introduced in Lady Midnight but really comes into his own in this book, and he's just wonderful. I really loved watching different relationships form and grow and change, and it was just really great. And I can't wait to reread that again. And then we have Queen of Air and Darkness. This book is nearly 900 pages, and I remember when it came out. It came out right after I graduated high school, and I just spent days doing nothing but reading it. This book is the first book that ever had a tab on my bookshelf because there was a scene that absolutely like ripped my heart out, and I just needed to have quick access to it when I felt like feeling something. I can't wait to reread this book. The Dark Artifices, again, is one of my favorite series ever, but this book is so big that I really do forget a lot of things that happen in it. There is this whole middle section that is set somewhere that we have never experienced in a Shadowhunter book, and I completely forget that it happens until I'm rereading it. But yeah, I'm really excited to get to this. So I kind of decided that 5 Cassandra Clare books were enough. I think that's making good progress on this reread for a month. I honestly don't know if I'll get through all of them. The Bane Chronicles and Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy do take me quite a while to read. They're quite large. But let's continue on with some other books that I'd like to read. I feel like in most of my TBRs, I talk about the fact that I really want to read classics, but just don't. And this one's no different. I would really like to finish The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde this month. I started it last November. I read 2 chapters and stopped, but there was a reason for that. I started reading it out loud and I just couldn't keep doing it, but it felt weird to stop and start just like reading it normally. And so I just kind of put it down and didn't pick it back up. But I really enjoyed the first 2 chapters of this book and would love to finish it. I think Oscar Wilde is a very intriguing historical figure and want to read some of his work. I do think I can do it. I just don't. I find it very hard to motivate myself to read classics because they are that little bit harder to understand than modern contemporary books. If you've never heard of The Picture of Dorian Gray, how do I even describe what this book is about? It follows a man named Dorian Gray. Shocker, I know. As he has his picture painted, stays young and beautiful while his sins wear away at the painting. It's really intriguing. I haven't gotten to that yet. I'm still very much up to the setup, but yeah, I don't really know fully what happens. I watched a movie adaptation years ago, but I don't remember much about that. I just remember like Ben Barnes lounging around pretty houses. But yeah, I really want to read this book. I have already noticed from those first 2 chapters, like Oscar Wilde's ideology coming through. I've done a bit of research on Oscar Wilde the man, and he was involved in like the aesthetic movement and things, and like you can tell there is a lot of that in this book. But yes, I would like to read The Picture of Dorian Gray. I've got to do it. I need to read a classic. I own so many classics, I need to read them. I feel like this TBR is very ambitious. A very long reread, and then a classic. And so this last book is something that feels a little more accessible. I was actually looking online for a book to fit like a very particular niche that exists in my head. And as I was searching, I realized that the book that has been sitting on my bedside table is exactly that. So this month I would like to read Pride and Prejudice in the City by Rachel Lupin-Cott, because it's been on maybe my past 3 TBRs and I think now's finally the time to do it. I don't really understand the logistics of this book. What I know is that there is a 17-year-old girl who exists in modern day who somehow ends up in the Regency period, and then romance happens because it's the Regency period and who doesn't want to fall in love in the Regency period? But yeah, I don't know how she gets there. I don't know if she gets back, but it's a Regency era romance. What more could you want? I've never really gotten into Bridgerton, but I love the vibes. There is something about the vibe that is really intriguing to me, and I have this book and so I would like to read it. I think this might be one of my first reads. I'm just really in the mood for romance at the moment, but I find it really hard to enjoy a lot of romances. I find they're always missing something in my mind, and so I do read like a lot of fan fiction. I do love the cultural shift that's happened over the last few years. Fanfiction used to be this like super embarrassing thing, like you do not talk about it, and now entire fandoms have built up around certain fanfics and it's great. I love it. I've been looking for kind of easy to read romance that fills that same like yearning that I have that fanfiction usually fills. I'd love to read some more published romance. It's just, again, very hit or miss. But I have high hopes for this book. A few friends have read it and they enjoyed it, so I hope it's good. So there we have it. Quite a stack of books to get through in April. But I'm probably going to borrow the audiobooks from the library for the Shadowhunter books, so it'll be much more manageable. This is heavy. Books are pretty hefty. But yes, that was my April TBR. If you liked this video, you can give it a thumbs up. Let me know one book you'd like to read in April. You can subscribe. I upload every week and I will see you next time. Bye.